Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of Dynasty, a college basketball podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Leone, and we got a special guest here, NKY Bracketology. He is a big bracketologist on Twitter. We're talking all things Big East basketball today. I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself, and then we'll get started.
Hey guys, so my name's Hunter. I'm, like Jordan said, a bracketologist on Twitter, at NKY Bracket Guy on there. Been doing it since 2019. Was 13th in the nation this year, so accuracy's improving. So it's just excited to be talking some Big East basketball today.
Sweet. We'll go ahead and get started. First thing I want to say is shout out Elon Musk. I paid $18 for your stupid premium, and I still can't stream. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube or Twitch, I really appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're talking about, again, Big East basketball, all things to watch out for, people to make a breakout year, dark horse teams in the Big Ten, who we think is going to win the Big Ten. And then we'll wrap it up with Hunter's top 3. I have top 3 for national championship contenders. So we'll ask the bracket man himself what he thinks about national championship contenders. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hunter, anybody that you're excited or looking out for in Big East basketball this year? Any player, any team in specific?
So I'm actually kind of excited to see DePaul this year. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but they have 11 new guys. They're obviously Holtman's a better coach than what they've had previously. So there's a chance I think that DePaul could be good. I'm excited to see a couple of guys get healthy. Sean Jones for Marquette, Bryce Hopkins for Providence, and then Zach Fremantle / Jerome Hunter for Xavier. I think all 4 of those guys just really elevate their team. And if they're healthy, it really just adds to the depth of the conference.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I know you mentioned Bryce Hopkins. Super excited for him to come back for Providence. And then someone else that I'm super excited for transferred in this year from St. Mary's, Aiden Mahaney.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be huge. I'm a big GCU fan, so I watched Aiden Mahaney in the tournament this year. I think that a lot of people were, I don't want to say disappointed, but Aiden Mahaney took a step back in his sophomore season.
Yeah.
He was shooting like 40, and 85 or something like that, and he went down to 33% from the field, 36% from 3, and like 82% from the free throw line. So I think he definitely took a step back. But I think that he fits a Dan Hurley offense really well.
I think the Team Spencer type of role, if you're looking for like a comp, I think you could look at him and like kind of what he did last year. And Mahaney might be able to do it just a little bit better from a scoring standpoint. I don't think Mahaney will be as good like rebounding or on the defensive side at first, but that Cam Spencer role is what I think he'll fill out.
No, yeah, I definitely think he fills out. I was just going to make that comp myself. I think he fills out the Cam Spencer role really well. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think a lot of people are going to be in shock. I think UConn, I don't want to say slump, but I don't think they're going to be the national championship contender that everyone hopes they're going to be. But I'm very excited to watch Aiden Mahaney. I think he has a chance to potentially be the newcomer of the year for the Big East.
Yeah.
But we'll jump right into dark horse teams in the Big East. I'll kick it off. I have them ranked at 5 in my Big East power rankings. You can call a spade if you want. They're in the top 25, so I don't know if they're necessarily a dark horse, but I think Shaka Smart and the Marquette Golden Eagles, they have a chance to be very, very good in the Big East. The Big East is very top heavy this year.
Yeah.
But I think if Shaka Smart can figure out those late game woes where they just let the defense or let the offense of the opposing team go on 10, 15 point runs at the end of the game. If he can figure that out, I think that Marquette has a really good chance. Maybe not win the Big East, but I think they have a good chance to set themselves up well for March, like they usually do.
Yeah.
Anyone in particular that you're watching?
I think that St. John's is a team that I'm really curious about. I think nationally they're going to fly a little bit more under the radar than they did last year. So the attention's kind of off of Patino and everybody. I think that's a good thing. So I think they're going to fly under the radar some. And then I do think DePaul, I know I mentioned him earlier. I like the collection of talent that Holtman's brought in. I think that's a team that you're looking at that like maybe nobody's even thinking about, that they could win some games and maybe pull some upsets.
Yeah, no, I definitely think DePaul is one of those weird teams. Like you said, they bring in essentially a whole new team, right? I think you said 11 new guys or 12,
Yeah, their
12
entire
new
roster,
guys.
they have nobody that returned at all.
Yeah, so no one returned, and then of course you got Chris Holtman. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was at Ohio State last year.
Yep.
Got fired from Ohio State. So I mean, maybe this is an opportunity for him to rejuvenate his career. I don't know, but I would be excited to see. I think DePaul's one of those one of those teams. If you get lucky, it'll be like a standalone game on a Tuesday night or something like that, and you can watch it. But we'll jump into Big East. Who do you think is going to win the conference this year? And we can go regular season, and then we can go tournament. If you think they're the same, great. If not, you can give me two different teams.
So I hate this because I'm gonna stick with Hurley and UConn, but I don't have like much faith in that. I think it's UConn or Creighton. I probably would take UConn to win the tournament, and then I'll say Creighton for the regular season. I think UConn's going to have a little bit of time where they're going to have some bumps in the road. I do think they'll figure it out by the end of the year, but their interior is going to be a big question mark this year.
Yeah, I briefly hit on it earlier, but I don't think that UConn is going to be the national championship contender buzzsaw that we saw over the last two seasons, where they're just running everyone out of the gym. Right? We're not gonna see the Dan Hurley led UConn that went on a 35-0 run against Illinois in the tournament. We're not gonna see that team this year.
Yeah. I think they're probably a little bit closer to 2 years ago if you want to compare them to a team. I mean, that team, I think, lost 8 or 9 games, all in Big East play. But they still went on to win the national title, but they definitely had those like bumps where they had to figure it out and kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah, the bumps in the road for sure. I think the thing that makes me the most nervous is you are heavily relying on a lot of new guys.
Yeah.
Hassan Diarra, he's going to be in the starting lineup, but he's not that guy. Yeah. He's not replacing a Tristan Newton, a Cam Spencer. He's not replacing those guys. Yeah. So he's just kind of filling a void. Yeah. So I think they take a step back this year, but you hit Creighton. I think Creighton wins the Big East. And I think like you said, there'll be some bumps in the road for UConn. I think that depending where those timely bumps may or may not come, you can see Creighton stretch out a 2 or 3 game lead in the Big East. Yeah. In late February, early March, going into the tournament. Creighton brings back Stephen Ashworth, Ryan Kalkbrenner. They also get Pop Isaacs from Texas Tech, who was very, very good. And then I'm in Arizona, so I watch a lot of ASU basketball as well. Jemiah Neal transferred from ASU over to Creighton.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that said last year, Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth, and Bailey Shireman combined for like 13 dunks or something like that on the season. And Jemiah Neal had 18 for ASU alone by himself. So I think that you obviously, like I said, you bring back Ashworth and Kalkbrenner. Jemiah Neal can fill that Bailey Shireman role and just plug the hole in the center.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to watch Creighton.
My biggest question with them is shooting, because Neal, he should try to fill that Shireman role, but Shireman shot a lot from deep, and Neal was a 28% three-point shooter, I think. So they're gonna, Mason Miller or somebody like that's gonna have to step up and kind of surprise. I think if they don't have that, they're not gonna have the same kind of shooting, and then you'll see people kind of collapse around Kalkbrenner more. So I'm really just curious to see maybe like a Jackson McAndrew can step out and start shooting as a freshman, but they're going to need somebody, I think, to shoot out a little bit.
Yeah, no, they definitely need that. I think Pop Isaacs might be that guy as well, because like there's going to be a lot of attention on Pop Isaacs. I think he averaged 16, 4, and 4 in Big 12 play last year. And if someone came, you can yell at me blue in the face, but Big 12 basketball is arms and legs better than the Big East basketball. So I mean, I think if he's doing that in Big 12 play, I could very easily see Pop Isaacs be like a 25 point per night guy. And if you got a guy that's averaging 25 points a night, like, you hypothetically should win a lot of basketball games.
I don't know that. I think 25 is a bit steep. I definitely get how you're getting there, but I think the volume he had last year helped him get to 16 because he was the guy at Texas Tech. Like he ran the show there. So I think he might take a step or two back scoring wise. Still 15 or 16, but I think he'll do it more efficiently. But yeah, I mean, he shot 38% from three last year. So if he can fill up the bucket like that and do it on less volume, I think you'll see just a little bit better efficiency. Definitely a player for the newcomer of the year type of situation. It's a great
for sure.
Yeah.
Before we jump into ranking, I'm curious to know your thoughts on Villanova. I have Villanova like in the middle of the pack for Big East this year. But they get a late signing of Wooga Poplar from Miami. I think that's a really big signing for Kyle Neptune. I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Okay, so I don't think Kyle Neptune should be coaching Villanova at this point. I'm still there after the transfer portal. Poplar and Perkins are good signings. Those are their top two transfer portal additions, but there's not a ton there. Eric Dixon, while he's good, he's not the guy that can like he's averaged 17 last year and look where the team went. So I'm worried about Villanova. I have them, I think, 8th right now. So I'm pretty low on Villanova at this point.
Yeah, I think we're pretty similar. I have them at 7. But to be honest, I think the Big East is very top heavy. And then realistically 4 through like 7 or 8, you could convince me one way or another, like, hey, I think Villanova should be 6 or Villanova should be 8, and like I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you there. But we'll jump into it. 11 teams. You talked a lot about DePaul. I'm curious to see where you have DePaul in your rankings.
All right, so I'll start from the top. I have UConn first. It's almost one of those I'm leaving them there until they prove otherwise kind of thing. Creighton is a close second. We've talked about them both already. I like what Creighton has as well. Marquette, I have at 3. I don't love 3 through 6 are a jumbled mess for me right now. So I went Marquette at 3. They return, 8 guys. They have experience, but I have health questions with Sean Jones and Chase Ross. So if they're healthy, I think Marquette could push up towards the top of the Big East, but I do have some bigger question marks. 4th, I have Xavier. Again, we're talking a lot of transfers and then a lot of health concerns. Zach Fremantle, if he's back, he's an all Big East caliber guy, first team. But I don't know if he's going to be fully healthy. So that's the whole question with that. I have Providence 5th with Hopkins, Pierre, Floyd, and Barron coming back. I just think there's too much there to kind of not give them that nod. That's assuming that Hopkins is fully healthy. If Hopkins is not fully healthy, I'm pushing them 4 or 5 spots down. Key for them, I think, is going to be Cardet from Chicago State. He averaged 19 for Chicago State, and they did not play an easy schedule. If he can keep that up in the Big East, it'll be impressive. 6th is a wild card. I have St. John's here. I have so many questions on their inside. Their perimeter is going to be one of the best in the country, but I don't know that they can do anything inside the paint. So I want to see Vincent from USC kind of step up before I take the next step with them. 7, I have Butler. This is a team I think you could put at 10 or 11 and I'd be okay with right now. There's not a ton there. Telfort and Brooks come back, lead the coming back players. I think Finley Bizjack from making that freshman to sophomore jump is going to be huge. 8, I have Villanova. I touched on them. I don't think there's a ton more to talk about there. Georgetown at 9. This is another team that has a really good perimeter, but I don't see anything inside. We're relying on a 4-star recruit who's not projected to be drafted next year to be their center. Until he puts it on the court, I'm not going to buy in that he's going to be that guy. So I have them coming in at 9th right now. 10th, I have DePaul. I've talked a lot about him. I'm very intrigued. I'm happy that DePaul's not just this dumpster fire anymore, but putting 11 or 12 new pieces together is pretty impossible, to be honest, especially with Holtman having to relearn Big East basketball, which is vastly different than the Big Ten. And rounding out, I have Seton Hall. Shaheen Holloway may make me look stupid for picking them last, but right now I just don't see it. I mean, you've got Chance Jenkins and then Zion Harmon. Those are the only two that average double figures that are on Seton Hall's roster from coming into this year. And both of them are transferring from Old Dominion for Jenkins and Bethune-Cookman for Harmon. So neither of those are like bona fide like starters at this level. And the Big East, while it's going to be pretty top heavy, those middle teams are going to be a step above, I think, Seton Hall and DePaul and Georgetown especially.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think like you talked about the whole middle of the pack there. We're pretty similar, but I have Creighton at the top. I talked a lot about Creighton. Ryan Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth. I think Pop Isaacs has a chance to fill. Like you said, he was that guy at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I think he has a chance to be the guy. Not only at Creighton, but he has the chance to be the guy for the Big East.
Yes.
Like I think he can be a face of the Big East if he really is very efficient with his play and he's not chucking up shots and things like that. And I think there's going to be a lot of times when Creighton is going to be ahead in most of the games, so they're not going to necessarily need a Pop Isaacs to be taking 32-foot 3-point shots late in the game, trying to close the gap and things like that.
Yeah.
I have UConn at 2. Very similar reason. I think that while I don't love it, I have them in my top 5 for my way too early top 25. I just think it's disrespectful to not have them there after back-to-back national championships. Like until they can prove to me otherwise. And to be honest, looking at their preseason or like their non-con schedule, I don't think that we're going to see them slip up until Big East play, to be honest with you. But until they can prove to me that they don't deserve to be there, like I will have them in the top 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then I have Xavier and St. John's. I know you had Xavier at 4, I think. I have Xavier at 3. A lot of new pieces.
Yeah.
But I think they have a chance to be really successful. And then like I told you, just a bit ago, I think 4 through 7, 4 through 8. Like if you told me, hey, I want Marquette at 4 and I want St. John's at 6, I wouldn't be mad or I wouldn't argue with you. So I have St. John's at 4, Marquette at 5, Providence at 6. Like you said, hitting on Providence, Bryce Hopkins is key. If he comes back and he's like 80% healthy, I think you can move them up to 4 or 5. But if he's playing at 50% or less than 50%, I think you honestly can drop them down to be near like a Georgetown or a DePaul.
Yeah.
I have Villanova at 7. I definitely agree with you. I think Wooga Poplar is a good addition. I don't think he single-handedly is going to revitalize the Villanova basketball that you and I saw, when we were kids for 10 years, when they were just winning every single game, every single team that they put in front of them, they were winning.
Yeah.
And then very similar to the middle of the pack, I think the bottom of the pack is very similar. Butler at 8, Seton Hall at 9, and then I have Georgetown and DePaul at 10 and 11, just because, again, until you can prove to me that you can win basketball games, you're going to be at the bottom of the pack. Just the same thing with UConn. Until you prove to me that you're not going to win every single game, I'm going to have you at the top of the pack. So just quickly, I got Creighton at 1, UConn at 2, Xavier at 3, St. John's at 4, Marquette, Providence, Villanova at 5, 6, and 7, and then Butler, Seton Hall, Georgetown, and DePaul rounding out the bottom of that group.
I think the key is like they're just big groupings of teams. Like you've got like 3 tiers basically. Yeah. And full honesty, now that we've done rankings, I'm a Xavier fan, so I might be a little harder on them than I am on other teams. So I started to put them at 3, but I can see like I said, that's kind of the middle of the pack for me.
But yeah. I think, like you said, there's tiers to everything we do, right? But I think there's realistically it's Creighton, UConn, Xavier at the top, and then there's like a huge step down, and then you got like St. John's, Marquette, maybe Providence. Like we said, depends on Bryce Hopkins in the middle, and then 7 through 11 realistically is just they're gonna win games, but they're gonna win games against each other. Like I would be surprised if like a Villanova through DePaul is winning a game even at home against like Creighton or UConn or like I think there's just like 2 or 3 levels different.
Nova, just to like kind of put it in perspective, Poplar, I had them at 11th when Poplar committed, and then they moved up to 8th just with his commitment. So I mean, it's super tight down that far as well.
Yeah. Jumping in, I'm curious to know if there's anyone. I know we talked about Pop Isaacs. We talked about a couple other people transferring in. Anyone in specific that you want to call out as far as like a newcomer of the year, rookie of the year, anything like that?
So I think newcomer of the year, I think there's 2 options right now that come off the top of my head, and I'm missing a bunch of guys, but I think you could look at Davion Smith, transferred from Utah, and then you could look at Pop Isaacs. I think they're a step ahead. Ryan Conwell for Xavier is one guy that if Xavier's going to meet the expectations we talked about, he's going to need to be in that kind of realm of area. I think when you're talking returners, you're talking Kadari Richmond for St. John's. Or Alex Caravan. I mean, if he hadn't come back, UConn would not be a top 25 team right now. He's absolutely huge for them, and I think he'll be the biggest like piece to return. And then Big East Player of the Year, I'll go with Ryan Kalkbrenner. I know you mentioned Pop Isaacs, but I think Kalkbrenner, what he does on the defensive side of the ball, makes him so valuable to that team, and now he's going to have to score more. So I think you'll see him running for the Player of the Year type of situation.
No, I don't hate either of those choices. I brought up Pop Isaacs. I know you said you're an Xavier fan.
Yeah.
I have Dante Maddox as a potential newcomer of the year for the Big East.
Yeah.
I think he takes a big step forward. He was the guy at Toledo, yes. And I think he has a chance to fill that role, to be like the number 1 guy or maybe the number 2 guy at Xavier.
So I think him and Conwell will absolutely be battling for that number 1 and number 2 spot on the team. So yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. And
then someone else for like rookie of the year. I think Liam McNeely. He's freshman from Montverde Academy. Montverde Academy, they just I don't know if they even have like real basketball players. I'm pretty sure it's just a basketball factory. They just print dudes that know how to ball. Yep. Derek Queen is playing for Maryland this year. He came from Montverde Academy. You got Liam McNeely. Like that whole school just bleeds basketball. Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised. I'm gonna pull up their roster right now, but there's like so many guys that are like, okay, like that guy could potentially be a lottery pick next year. Yeah. Like a Derek Queen. I think Ace Baldwin came from Montverde Academy.
I believe so, yeah.
And then you got Liam McNeely. Like they print 5-star recruits.
Pretty much.
So Liam McNeely from Montverde Academy, he was number 10 nationally ranked. I think he fits very well into the UConn lineup. Like I said, I do think that there's a lot of unknowns with this UConn lineup, like who's going to score, yes, who's going to defend. Like you said, I think Ryan Kalkbrenner does a lot on the defensive end. I don't think Dan Hurley is stupid enough to put Ryan Kalkbrenner out to dry, not Ryan Kalkbrenner, sorry, Caravan. I don't think he's going to put Caravan out to dry and just, hey, you are responsible for defending the basket.
Yeah.
But
for UConn, either Terrace Reed from Michigan or Samson Johnson have to step up and prove that they're a bona fide starter. I don't know that either can, and that's where my biggest questions are for them. But you're absolutely right. Like, yeah.
And then for me, for Big East Player of the Year, I've been talking a lot about Pop Isaacs, but he took a big jump from freshman to sophomore year. He went from 11 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists to his sophomore year, 15.8, 3.8, and 3.8, while improving those splits.
Yeah.
I talked about it earlier. I think he can be a 20 or 25 point per game player for the Blue Jays in a very top heavy Big East. I would be nervous if Pop Isaacs takes it, not necessarily nervous per se, but if he takes a step back and he's not producing.
Yeah.
I think you can realistically kind of you could sell me on UConn winning if Pop Isaacs is not scoring the basketball.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm curious about with Isaacs is transitioning from the Big 12, which is clearly the best conference in the country, but they play a different kind of pace and speed than the Big East does. The Big East, a lot of these teams are going to run, and you don't see that as much in the Big 12, like as fast. So I'll be curious to see if he can handle the tempo, because Creighton is one of those teams that they want to just go all the time. And Texas Tech did not go like that at all. So he is, as long as his conditioning's there with his shot, he should be okay. But that is a question mark I have for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you bring up a good point. It's very different to go from the Big 12. They play a lot of like set basketball, so they're going to slow down the pace. They're going to make their sets, and then they might take 24, 26 seconds off the clock every time down the court. Yeah. Big East, if they score 95 in the first half, like it wouldn't surprise me one bit. Yeah. I think it's you can almost compare Big East to like SEC basketball. Like there's no defense at all. They just run and they shoot the basketball, and they might take 85 shots a game, but they're going to put up 95 points every single night.
Yeah.
But we'll wrap it up with national championship contenders. I'm curious to hear your top three, and then I'll share mine.
So for me, everything runs through Kansas right now. I think they're just kind of like 1A by themselves. Just what Self did in the portal, I think he's just too good to kind of not give them that credit. But I think Alabama and Houston are 2 and 3 for me. Alabama, they have some continuity. They have some transfers. I think they'll be good. And then Houston, I've just learned to just stop doubting Houston. And they should play the same style they played last year and be just as good.
Yeah, I don't hate any of those. I would say Kansas and Alabama for me are 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
I think that Alabama, they made that run last year to the Final Four, and they didn't really lose much. And yeah. I think the thing that helps them the most is Nate Oates went into the offseason assuming that Mark Sears wasn't going to come back.
Yeah.
He went and he got a bunch of dudes who were just transfers. They're solid guys. They're going to go and play defense. You get Grant Nelson is returning, so that's huge. And then Mark Sears comes out of the late window and he says, guess what, guys? I'm coming back. We're going to win a chip, right?
That's
so I think Kansas and Bama are 1A and 1B. I have a little bit more of like flyers for my second and third. I have Baylor. I know you've been talking a lot about Baylor. I think VJ Edgecombe is he's going to be that guy that can will a team to victory.
Absolutely.
And then I have like a fly on the wall that I am very curious to see how they shake out in the Big 12. But I think TJ Otzelberger in Iowa State. I think if you want like a fly on the wall, last I looked, they were like plus 3,500 or something right now to win the national champion. Anytime you can look preseason and you can find a team 35-1 that like realistically could be at the top of the best basketball conference in all of basketball, like I say that you take a fly on that.
Yeah, I agree.
But it, like I said, I named three of the 4 teams that I just named are in the Big 12. So yeah. Iowa State could very well be like a 10 seed because just the Big 12 is that good.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're 5 and like had I given like 5, they would have been the 4th and 5th picks for me. So absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, anything else you're curious or you want to talk about? If not, we can wrap it up.
I don't think so. I mean, we covered I think the Big East pretty well. Just thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, not a problem. Thanks for coming on, and I will see you guys all next week.
Thanks, guys.